All right. Welcome everyone to today's episode of More Than Milestones. I'm Casey, I'm your host, and today I'm going to be sharing probably what's going to be hard for me and for other people to receive. So just like a little content warning, I am going to be sharing about my journeys with postpartum anxiety and really just like postpartum mental health struggles and what it was like for me, how I kind of like found my way out of it, all of that stuff. And then we will have a follow-up episode where we're going to be talking through a lot of this stuff with an expert in maternal mental health. So let's dig in. If you're new here, if you don't know me, I am Casey. I am a mom of 3 little ones. I have a 7-year-old, I have a 5-year-old, and I have a just turned 4-year-old. And I have always struggled with general anxiety. It's like the running joke in my family that like anytime I was nervous about something, I would get a stomach ache, right? Which is also just like fun fact. That is also a really, really big sign in children of anxiety is complaints of stomach ache. And at another point, I'm sure I'll talk about kind of navigating that with one of my little ones as well. But it was always there for me, right? Like I was a swimmer and I would be getting up, like going to get up on that block and be ready for a race. And I would be like, my stomach hurts. And it was always my thing. It's still the joke, right? My stomach hurts. So I didn't know that was anxiety until adulthood, really, probably. I definitely also struggle with some OCD like tendencies. And then I was also diagnosed with ADHD a few years back, and I'll kind of share how that happened because it was all kind of related. So I had my first. I prepared for pregnancy. I prepared for birth. I did not prepare for that 4th trimester because it hit me. So it all really, I think in hindsight, my struggle with postpartum anxiety 100% stemmed from her delivery and what happened immediately after. So I had her and she had shoulder dystocia when she was born. And so as soon as she was born, they put her on my chest and I knew that they were going to need to take her for an x-ray, right? And now this is all happening very quickly. So I have her, they put her on my chest, and within maybe a minute, I truly don't remember this part. This is more, the last piece I remember is I was shaking. They took her off my chest because she was going into respiratory distress. And I remember Jay holding me and the OB just hitting the like, oh crap button behind my head. And the room was like flooded with people because I was hemorrhaging. I don't remember much after that. I know my mom and sister were in the room. They went with Audrey because she needed to have x-rays of her clavicle to make sure it wasn't broken from the dystocia. And then they were also obviously taking her to the NICU because she was in respiratory distress. And that's really all I remember until I woke up at like 2 a.m. and she wasn't there. And I couldn't remember what happened and I couldn't go to the NICU to see her. And it was absolutely terrifying. And I think a lot of my difficulty really did stem from that because it was like, I felt like I failed from the first moment. Like I was like, and then the NICU was a whole other thing, like battling with trying to get her off of the formula, which they had to give her in that moment because I was not well. But it was really hard to get her off of that. She had a tongue tie that I really didn't know whether I wanted to intervene or not. I was having trouble with nursing. It was a lot. And so there was definitely this feeling of failure kind of like from the get-go that I didn't recognize. And so much of my postpartum, well, what I didn't know was postpartum anxiety at the time. I truly just thought like, welcome to motherhood. What I didn't know was like such a big root of it as well was my desire to control, right? Like I needed to control every aspect. And I think a lot of that was because I couldn't control it when she was born, right? So that desire for control really went to the next level when I started to really struggle with intrusive thoughts. And they were horrible. Like content warning, I'm going to share just a couple of really quick ones, but it was like, I wanted to control everything so that I could protect her, right? Like I did not leave our bedroom, my husband, my bedroom with her, except for like doctor's appointments for weeks. Like I was just like, I can control this room. I can control who's coming in, who's going out. I can control what's happening to us. And my intrusive thoughts became so intense that it would be like, I would literally be walking with her into the living room or the kitchen or something. And I would like have a vision of like, what if I hit her head accidentally off of the stair banister? Or what if I accidentally am walking and I trip and I drop her? I even at one point was having intense intrusive thoughts about like what happens when she gets her license and I can't protect her, and what if she gets into a car accident? Like, how am I gonna? It was horrible. I couldn't leave her with anyone unless I was also still there. I couldn't leave her with Jay. I could barely like hand her to him because I was like, don't drop her. Like, it was paralyzing. And I think the hardest part in navigating that was that when I would talk to people or try to open up about like, I don't feel like myself, a lot of times because I wasn't sharing the extent, because I was ashamed of it, I was terrified of those intrusive thoughts. I was like, does this mean that I want that to happen? Like, why is this happening? Which obviously now I know is not at all the case, but like this was all me just trying to navigate this on top of hormones and the fourth trimester and all of these things. And so I would talk to people a little about it. Like I would like dabble in telling them a tiny bit. And often I would hear like, oh yeah, welcome to motherhood. Like we worry you're going to be worrying for the rest of your life. And I was like, whoa, like, okay, maybe this really is going to be my reality. And for one, if you are listening to this, no, that's not true. There is such an immense difference between normal worrying as a parent, which is natural, right? You have a whole new life that you're taking care of. It's normal to worry, but when that worry crosses into truly impacting your life, your ability to get up, your ability to leave the room, your ability to participate in your daily life, it's not normal and it does not have to be that way. And finally, well, okay, so we're in it, right? In the fourth trimester. And then, I'm going to my 6-week appointment as another piece of that story. And like, I'm filling out this paperwork and it's like, all about postpartum depression, which is that's a very real struggle too. But answering the questions that are like, am I thinking about hurting myself or my baby? I'm like, oh my gosh, no, like literally the opposite. I'm terrified of something happening to her or something happening to me and I can't care for her. Like it made me feel like even more reinforced in that incorrect idea that like, okay, maybe this is just what motherhood is going to be like for me. And it really wasn't until and the tracker apps, the sleep, like I had to delete all of the tracking apps. I had to let go of every expectation I had about sleep because she was also a low sleep needs kid and I'm low sleep needs too, but she never fit into like the wake windows, the this. So here I am tracking everything, trying to control all the variables, and it's still not all coming together because she's an individual human. So I had to let go of so much of that. And then, and I'll talk about sleep on another episode. That's a whole different ball of wax. But really like what made me realize was this, she was probably around a year old. I was pregnant with my second and I was watching an Instagram story of someone that I have followed for years. I adore her. Like I credit her so much because she was just vulnerably sharing her experience with postpartum anxiety, and listening to her, I was like, oh my God. Like that is 100% what I went through. Our stories were so similar and I felt so validated and so seen, but also so sad for the time that I missed with Audrey because I was so not well from a mental health standpoint, and it really didn't have to be that way. And I think that piece too is still something I have a lot of guilt about. Like there are huge gaps in my memory of when she was a baby and when Liv was a baby, because I just truly feel like I was in survival mode. Like my brain was like, protect. Like I could not make those memories. And I'm so thankful for having pictures and things to look back on because there are gaps, and that makes me sad again because it didn't have to be that way. So I just want to pause there super quickly and say one of the biggest things that really changed the game for me was recognizing that I absolutely had postpartum anxiety and going into my second pregnancy prepared with a therapist that specializes in postpartum mental health, which I found. I will put the link in the notes of this episode. But Postpartum Support International has a directory that you can type in your location and you can find a therapist that specializes in it. And I started with a different therapist and was like, I don't know, they were just a generalized therapist, which is great. But I think because of what I was navigating, And because I was like scared to admit that I had those intrusive thoughts. Like I was like, are they going to like take my baby? Like, are they going to, if they don't understand what an intrusive thought is, are they going to think that I'm actually going to do those things? Like it was really scary. And it was also like definitely holding me back in therapy. So finding a specialist who like got it, it was a game changer. I was able to put things into place leading up to Liv's birth during her pregnancy, because pregnancy was another thing that was very anxiety inducing for me, because I think a lot of it comes down to what I do for a living, right? So like I am hearing every day the stories where something happens in a pregnancy and it doesn't go the way things were planned, you know? So pregnancy in and of itself was challenging for me for sure. So having the support and then having systems in place after where if someone offered, like if my mom offered to like vacuum, letting her do it, like having the support where I knew, even if it was uncomfortable for me, that I had to ask. I had to ask for help. I had to be honest that I was struggling and that maybe I needed something. I needed help, whatever it might be. So again, having that plan in place leading into Liv's did not necessarily stop the anxiety or the postpartum mental health struggles, but it certainly made them better. And it certainly gave Jay a chance to be dad and step into himself and for our relationship to shift, right? Because even though he was obviously there for me, I still wasn't being fully honest because I was barely processing what I was really going through, you know? So again, I cannot, if it is available to you and it's an option, I cannot recommend getting a therapist that specializes in postpartum mental health or perinatal mental health more, because again, it changed everything. I think a big piece of postpartum mental health in general too, for me at least, is about the demands that are on moms and the lack of support. Like I went back to work at 8 weeks. She was 8 weeks old. And so like being away from her, having to like trust someone else, even if it was just for short periods, like it was so taxing on me. And if I had been able to be home with her, like who knows what would have been different, you know? But that was my reality at that point. And so I think another piece of it too that's really important to talk about is like, and I don't know if every mom struggles with this, but like I inherently had a very hard time taking time away from being with my child. It felt selfish to me. I felt guilty. Still, that is still something that I struggle with, right? Where I'm like, you know, even being a working mom, I'm like, I should be with them. But I know I'm a better mom when I allow myself to have this really big piece of me too, right? Like I love what I do for work and I love being able to show up for people in my community and also for my family. And it has taken a lot of work and it is truly still something I'm actively working on 7 years into being a parent, being like, Casey, it's okay. Like it's not selfish to go to work. It's not selfish to go get your hair done if you want to, you know? But I think like inherently, because moms are so often pulled in so many directions nowadays, it's just really hard to not have that kind of voice always in your ear. And being someone who I don't want to inconvenience people, right? Like even my loved ones, like, and what my brain tells me is an inconvenience to people often isn't actually when I just say it to them. And I think that growth for me was a big piece of like asking for help or saying, I'm feeling super anxious about this appointment. Are you sure it's really okay? Like, are you sure it's okay for you to watch them for a little bit, you know? And that has definitely slowly gotten better. But even for Jay, like I tend to go inward when I'm really stressed and I don't talk much, right? Like I don't talk until I'm kind of out of that survival mode in my head. And having honest conversations with him about how I was feeling and him being like, do you know how much easier it is when you just talk to me? And like, obviously, you know, but it just has taken a lot of work to be able to acknowledge that like I probably will never not have baseline anxiety. And I don't necessarily want my anxiety to go away, right? Like my baseline anxiety is who I am. It protects me. It like has shaped such a huge part of who I am, you know, even my ADHD, even OCD like tendencies, like all of that stuff. It's like, it's so easy to be like, oh, it's horrible, but like it is who I am. I don't want that to go away. I just don't want it to be impacting my life and my ability to function and my happiness and my ability to show up the way that I want to show up, right? And so another big thing in therapy that I'll kind of pivot now to talking more about my ADHD diagnosis. So as I'm in therapy, I am working with this therapist, right? I'm explaining like kind of all of the struggles I've always had, a lot of which is like when I'm anxious is when I need to control something. And that is typically when my OCD-like tendencies, and I'm saying that because I've never formally been diagnosed, but like pretty sure my OCD-like tendencies are typically showing up to control, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, I have this intrusive thought, right? That maybe, what if I hit her head off the banister? Then for me, it would be like, okay, if I make it past this in 3 seconds, it won't happen. Or if I touch this shoulder and then touch the opposite shoulder twice and then this shoulder again once, then it won't happen. And so that became paralyzing in and of itself, right? And so while I was in therapy and really like sharing all of this with her, sharing kind of like even before my postpartum experience, sharing what that was like for me as a kid, like I used to have intrusive thoughts like, who are we going to live? I distinctly remember being at a sleepover at my aunt's house and having the thought, who is going to take care of us if my parents die while we're not here or while we're here tonight? Like I was like 8, like that is wild, but I internalized all of it, right? And I was a great student. I was a strong student and I wasn't disruptive, and unfortunately for many women who are now being diagnosed later in life with ADHD, that is their story, right? Like successful, found ways to mask, found ways to like, you didn't even know you were doing it, right? So as I'm in therapy and I'm really like kind of just explaining to her like my life, like all of these things that I've dealt with and found methods to deal with and been ultimately successful with, when it came to motherhood, all of those methods like went to crap. Nothing was working anymore. And I think there's a lot of layers to that, right? Like I think there's a hormonal layer. I think there's a layer in like just the fact that like you have a whole new set of massive responsibility that it's not just about you anymore, right? And so when those methods stopped working for me is when I think things really like hit a peak and I was like, what is happening inside of my brain and my body? And so talking through it all with her, she suggested that I get tested for ADHD because basically what she explained to me was that many times for women, ADHD is not a forefront diagnosis because of the way women often present or girls often present, which is that our ADHD, our hyperactivity component is not necessarily as outwardly visible as it is with boys. And so where we go is mental hyperactivity, right? Like we are running through scenarios. We are constantly thinking of what ifs and all of these things, right? Our brain is never just quiet. And she was like, I truly think that yes, you have a baseline of anxiety and yes, you might have some OCD tendencies, but she's like, I think the root of it might be ADHD, right? Because that is anxiety inducing. Like to never have your brain just be quiet is anxiety inducing at times. And so when I got tested, it was like a raging, yeah, that's it. You got ADHD, girl. But I was pregnant with Austin at that point, my youngest, and I was completely against medication and I'm not, but I was at that point, right? Just my scenario. So I kind of just like roughed it. And then after he was born, after like I stopped nursing, I was like, I think it's time. I would love to try it because again, it's like the more and more and more that got put on my plate, the less and less and less all of those systems that I had in place my entire life were working. So and I can talk more about this in another episode too, but like starting ADHD medication, and I have since come off of it, but starting it was the most insane experience of my life because my brain was just like quiet, like calm and quiet. I could get one thing done and move to the next thing instead of being like, let me do the dishes. Oh, wait, let me change the laundry over. Oh, wait, I got to get the kids a snack. Oh, wait, let me do this. Like I was able to just be like, whew. And what that gave me was the ability to develop new methods, right? That ultimately let me come off of the medication for now. And if I choose to go back on it at some point, then so be it. Being intentional about helping myself and my brain get to a place where I could be successful and I could figure out how to step into motherhood in the way that I wanted to without the overwhelm, without the chaos, without like the mental gymnastics. It was just like life-giving, And so I think it's something that we don't talk about enough. I think it's something in general that a lot of women are quietly struggling with. And I just hope that hearing this, if any part of any of this resonated with you, I hope that you give yourself permission to prioritize yourself, because truly, like, I know people say like, you can't fill from an empty cup, blah, blah, blah. And it's easy for moms to be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I did the same thing. But like, you have to, like, you have to. It will make all the difference in the world. And whether that looks like self-work, acknowledging those thoughts, or going formally to a therapist, like, I cannot recommend just giving yourself the space to acknowledge that, like, it feels hard because it is hard. And if you're struggling on top of that, it's okay to ask for and seek out and use the supports that are available to you, you know? So that's kind of the big overarching story behind that. I'm sure there's lots of details that will come up in the next episode with that expert that I mentioned. But thank you for letting me share this with you and for giving me a space to be honest. I mean, I think that in and of itself is just an incredibly powerful thing for me, and something that I'm so grateful for, because when I was really in it, I had my social media community and I did share a lot of it in real time. And, you know, just it made a difference for me. All of you did. So I appreciate you so much. And I hope that this is helpful for someone that's listening too. So if you have experienced this, if you have any questions, if you just want to be like, I get it, like whatever, please DM me with your story, leave a review, email me, whatever. And if you think this will resonate with someone that you know, please share it with them. Share it with someone who might enjoy hearing it. And I will see you next time.